I'm not crying anymore, oh, because I praise the Lord. I've been laughing all day long because of my Lord. Depression doesn't faze me anymore. Anxiety is gone because of my Lord. It's time.
Hey everybody, welcome to Lost Light and Laughter, an uplifting show about laughter after tragedy. I'm your host, Michelle A. If you're ready for some inspiration and laughter in your life, you've tuned in to the right show.
It's time to show love, everybody. Show love one time. Feel me strong enough to fight my battles. I know he'll never give me more than I can handle. My Lord, my King, the one that I do love.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Lost Light and Laughter. I'm your host, Michelle A. And on today's episode, we have Jason Queen. Jason, come on in. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself. We met on the Great American Speak Off, so you know he's a wonderful motivational speaker. Jason, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me on. Super excited to be hanging out with you guys. And for all of you listening, man, I hope you enjoy this episode. I'm excited to be here. So yeah, like she said, I'm a motivational speaker. I am a mindset coach, and there's a long story behind how I got there and how we ended up in Miami. Man, what an incredible event that was. For those who don't know about this event we went to, let me just tell you, this was a life-changing week in Miami. It was incredible. Yeah. Absolutely amazing.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, I'll just jump right in, I guess.
Tell us, okay, so as you know, the name of the show is called Lost Light and Laughter. Talk to us about a significant loss that you experienced in your life.
Man, this one's tough because I could spend the whole show talking about this one. And I'll never forget the day that my parents walked out those doors and got in their car and drove off, leaving me halfway across the country. And the only program that would even accept me at the time. And man, I was lost, lonely, broken. And maybe like some of you listening right now, in that moment, I felt like I was stuck and I didn't see a way forward. Like I literally felt hopeless, like life was a game and I lost. And then this man stepped in my life and he noticed me. And when he did, he didn't see a messy person. He saw a person who was in a mess. And he believed in me when everybody else gave up. Yeah. And he said, Jason, you're just a few choices away from a very different life. And when he said that, it changed everything for me, because when I was hopeless at the bottom, like literally ready to give up, I didn't believe that there was anything worth living for. And this man, when he showed up, it really was a game changer. He said, Jason, if you'll just change a few things, like if you'll change your focus, because what you stare at, you steer towards. And right now you're focused on your past mistakes and failures. So you keep repeating them. Right. But if you'll focus on who you want to be and where you want to go, you could get there. He said, Jason, if you just change your relationships, because you're impacted the most by those closest to you. And some of those people right now, man, they're toxic. They're holding you back and they're weighing you down. They're keeping you from your destiny. But there are relationships that want to elevate you on your journey. And he said, Jay, if you will just change direction, because you can't get to where you want to go on the same path that you've been on. But if you'll do those things, you can have a very different life. And what I'm telling you, Michelle, is one next step at a time. That's exactly what I did. I went from being a dropout to a dream chaser. I went from below average to average and up at every turn. Come on. I went from hopelessly stuck to absolutely unstoppable. And if you're listening to this right now and you've heard the voices, people telling you you're not going to make it, people telling you that you're not worth it, people telling you that you'll be another statistic, those are voices that I was hearing. That's what they were saying about me, the people that had given up on me. And I'm telling you right now, if you feel stuck at a plateau, or you just more for you, I'm telling you, there's absolutely more for you. And I want you to hear that for yourself, believe that over your life, and receive that right now in this moment. That was the beginning of my journey, Michelle, of understanding like what God even had in store for me and what he wanted to do with my life. And he took me on this wild, crazy adventure that is just unbelievable since then.
Yes. Well, tell us. Okay. So your parents dropping you off, what actually happened? Because that's a big loss right there. That's a disconnect. What actually happened? Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, so growing up in a dysfunctional family, I was exposed to drugs and alcohol at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was around a lot of violence and a lot of fighting and arguing, things like that. My parents didn't know, they didn't have a relationship with God or anything like that until later on. And by the time I had hit high school, I had been kicked out. I had been labeled oppositionally defiant disorder. I had been removed from my home by the state for threatening my family. I was placed in foster care and all of that. And there's layers, right? Layers of things that happened, but it was a very dark place in my life. And all of that led up to this moment of being sent halfway across the country, where I would literally never have, not having parents at a game, not having parents at any holidays, not having family for anything ever, for anything. Like those were my formidable years.
Gosh, that is rough. That's really tough. And I hate that that happened to you, but I also know it sounds like your parents didn't know what else to do. And they wanted to save your life. So
Yeah.
if it meant cutting you off from them temporarily to save your life, they were willing to do that. And that's a hard decision to make as a parent. And then it's a hard decision to receive as a child. Like
Yeah.
that is a major loss. And so I don't know where your relationship was with Jesus or God at that time when you were, the separation from your parents. Where was God in all that? Because I know as an adult, we can look back and we can see the light. We can see how God shows up. Where is God in all of that?
So I hated God, hated the idea of God, hated all authority, didn't have a relationship with God. And what's wild about it, you hit it right on. My parents didn't know what else to do. They were at their end. They did love me. They did care about me. They didn't know. They were doing the best they could with what they had. And when that man stepped in my life in that program, one of the things he said about relationships, when he was talking about there's some that are weighing you down and they're keeping you from your destiny, but there are relationships that will elevate you on your journey. One of the most important relationships that I was introduced to was Jesus. And that was one of the biggest life-changing moments of my life. It was like God put on a latex glove, reached down into the slimy pit of my life and pulled me out. And he said, Jason, I got a purpose for your life. And yeah, as an adult, I look back and I realize, had my parents not done that, had they not made that move, as difficult as it was, all of those moments led up to me understanding the purpose for my life.
Wow.
I mean, that was the beginning of this journey of speaking life and hope over people. I'll never forget, I'm a passionate person. So when I was lost, I was passionately lost.
Lost. I get it. I get it. Okay. Yeah.
And Jesus showed up and he was like, yo, keep that same passion for me. Keep that same energy for me. And a year after, like just in my Bible every day and just eating it up every day, like trying to change my life, I started getting invited to go share my story. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. I didn't have any speaking classes or nothing. I was, I was a loudmouth, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. It's preparation.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, hey, listen, if you're listening to this right now and people are always telling you to be quiet, I'm telling you, there's probably a real big purpose for your life right now. And God wants to use you.
Yes, that's really good. Because just listening to it, it was I want to say this, it was an unorthodox method to get you to God.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we don't want to feel the pain to get to him. We just want to get to him. And I get it. Sometimes you don't have to experience pain. There are people that, they grew up in church and they just welcome Jesus into their hearts. And then there's us.
Oh, man.
Had to experience some painful moments. And we got him. We found him. Yes, we welcomed him into our lives. And so, I mean, that I want people to rest in. And I also want, because there are parents that are going to be listening and they're struggling with their children and they don't ever want to feel like they've left or abandoned their kid because they sent them to military school or sent them to a relative far away. But they care so deeply. And I want every parent listening to know that there's no condemnation here, not on this show.
That's right.
We understand you. We get your pain. And Jason is living proof that the things that you're thinking about right now, that's what's going to happen for your child. They're going to find someone. And what was his name? That gentleman that came across your life. I mean, look, he was an angel. I just said, it sounds like an angel, like someone God sent to speak directly into your life.
Yeah, his name's Darren. And
Darren.
The only person I met more stubborn than me. And God sent him my way.
Amen.
I needed it.
Look, everybody needs a Darren in their life. Okay?
Yes.
That is going to stubbornly stand by you until you get it right.
Come on.
Okay? And so parents, start praying for those Darrens. Pray for them to come into your child's life, because I know you're scared and you're struggling. And for the young adults that are listening, and they may even feel slighted because their parents had them go live with an aunt or go live with their dad or go live with a family member far away, and they are angry because they feel like their parents abandoned them. What can you tell those young adults, Jason?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to go back to the parents. Listen, if you're in the middle of what feels like a hopeless scenario, I want you to know that as messy as my scenario was, all of that was God's preparation to do something incredible, in my life. If you think about the hunter with a bow and arrow, it's not until that bow is stretched at full capacity, at the most tension, before it can be released to shoot its target. And the pressure was real. My mom would put dressers and furniture up against her door and barricade herself in her room at night because I was so out of control. And she had almost lost her mind so many times, but she never gave up. And so if you're a parent, I want you to know, it doesn't matter how dark it looks right now. Come on. The night always comes before the morning.
Yes.
There is always hope for you. And there's hope for your son. There's hope for your daughter. So if you're a parent, I want you to hear that from me.
Yes.
Okay. There's hope. And if you're a young adult and you feel slighted on any way, what you need to understand is that God is the master potter. And when the potter puts the clay on the spinning wheel, he begins to spin it and then push on it and then shape it and then mold it. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. But the reason God does that is because in his mind, he can see who he created you to be. And those are necessary moments to shape you into the beautiful, magnificent masterpiece that he has designed you to be with your life. And outside of those scenarios, those shapes, that form would never happen for you. And so know that God is in the midst of your turmoil. He's behind the scenes and everything that you're going through, and he's for you.
Amen. Oh my goodness. That is so good. Thank you for that. And this is how God shows up, y'all. A lot of times we put God in a box and we want him to function this way or just a small way and this tiny. And God is like, look, I'm so much bigger. Okay. Jason is going to find Jesus. I'm sending somebody to help him. Okay.
Halfway across the country. Yes.
But he found him. And I'm like, I love it. And it's exciting to hear that there's hope. And for a parent to think that I'm giving up, no, you're giving your child to God. That's what you're doing. You're not giving up. You're actually even stronger when you release control. I love that. I love hearing this. This is just an awesome story. And so we hear about yes. And so we're starting off, we hear the loss of the separation from parents at a young age. Then we see God, he sends a Darren, right? That's his name, Darren?
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. He sends a Darren into Jason's life. Now talk to us about when your life begins to shift. At what point do you see hey, I'm growing. I don't have an attitude or a temper anymore. When do you notice that, Jason?
Well, let me just say that it's a process and it's okay that it's a process. Mm-hmm. So if you're out there right now and you're like, man, I said yes to Jesus and my life hasn't immediately transformed.
Right. Yes.
Let me tell you that what happened in my life was that my heart immediately shifted. My heart wanted a different life, but I had created habits and mindsets and lifestyles, all this stuff that needed time to shift. So I remember I was an angry person. I would walk up to people and I would push them just so they would say something, just to throw hands. I remember I would just do crazy. I was just mad. I was always fighting somebody. And I remember when I first said yes to Jesus, and I started applying those principles, changing my focus and my relationship and direction. I knew it, but it took time to like practice. This kid ran his mouth to me, and I remember just going off, and people had to like tackle me and pull me off. And I remember walking away saying, this doesn't feel the same. I feel yucky inside. Like, this doesn't feel right, you know? And I was the Holy Spirit and His goodness saying, man, it's not my best for you. I got something so much better than this. Come on, don't succumb to this stuff. And so like, I'm reading the Bible, and the Bible's talking about, it's okay to be angry, but don't sin in your anger. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't know how to do that. And I'm praying and I'm reading every day. And then somebody else mouths off and I start throwing hands again. And in the middle of the fight, like I start feeling that same, like, this ain't good, man. I don't like this. And then it would get to the point where like somebody would come and mouth off and I would see it coming. And God in His goodness with the fruit of the Spirit would be like, Jay, come on. I got better for you than this. And I was able to like back up and walk away. And then eventually I would see people come and mouth off and I'd see them as a mission. And I got to like love them and care. So man, I went through that whole process. It took a while, man, but that was my journey. And then I saw my purpose in all of it. It was amazing.
Wow. Now that's growth. That's growth. And I love the way that you spelled it out for us, that it wasn't an instantaneous thing. It took time. You made mistakes in the process, but then you begin to see it like, wait a minute. And then your conscience, like it's soft. Like I would always say, create in me a clean heart, oh God, and renew a right spirit within me. Right? Turn this heart of stone into a heart of flesh. Because listen, people don't know this about me, but I used to have a very, very bad temper. So when you say throw hands, I know throw hands. I've been suspended more times than the average kid can count. Okay.
Let's go. We could have been friends.
Or enemies.
Or enemies. Yes.
Okay. And so I love that, you mentioned that it takes time, it takes practice. And you know what? Things are going to still happen. It don't just go away. And I love that how you were able to identify. Now I already know they coming with some mess. Let me turn this thing around and try to help them. See, listen, y'all need to get connected with Jason. I'm going to drop his information in the description box. So if anyone is struggling, they have children, okay, that are going through some of this stuff, Jason is a great person to talk to because he can talk to you as a parent and as the child. He can see both perspectives now, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So he's a great person to get connected with. Okay, so we talked about the loss, we talk about the light, and there's so much light throughout this entire story, which I absolutely love because God is all in and through your life.
Come on.
Let's talk about the laughter. When do you see that shift where you're actually laughing and you feel good about yourself?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Do you want to learn more about the Bible and how it reveals God's plan for humanity? Do you want to discover the connections between the Old and New Testaments and how they form one cohesive story? If so, you should listen to Reasoning Through the Bible, a podcast that explores the scriptures verse by verse with clarity and insight. Join us every week as we dive into the historical context, theological implications, and answers to questions about each passage to see how they apply to our lives today. Don't miss this opportunity to grow your faith and understanding of God's Word. Subscribe to Reasoning Through the Bible.
Yeah. So layers, God's shifted my whole life, right? Like, and I'm going on this journey and finding freedom, discovering my true identity as a beloved son, realizing that the one who knows me best loves me the most. And, for all of you listening, the guilt and the shame, right? Because you know yourself the best, your failures the best. And then when I discovered that God actually knows me best, but He still loves me the most, man, that truth just began to just sink in, that I was no longer the caterpillar digging around in the dirt, but now I was a butterfly able to elevate my life to a whole nother place and experience a whole new world that I never even knew was available to me. And I started like speaking at schools and camps and conferences and churches and random places. And the joy that I found was like, here I am talking to other students who are on the brink of like complete destruction. They're the mirror image of who I was. And I'm on the other side. And I'm like talking about hope, talking about like there's a way better way to live. Once upon a time, I would have cared less about them or fought them or whatever. And like the irony of like God flipping the whole thing, and that would be the launch pad, by the way, for what I would do for 20 years, traveling and speaking and building up and speaking hope and life over students all over the place, everywhere I could. And there's a lot of things I could point out about like the laughter side of it, but like that was like the irony that like started to turn that. And, you know, fast forward to where I'm at now, like I was at a mega church, 5 campuses, on staff, and at the director level, overseeing strategy, vision, and communication and teaching team and all these things, and making a huge impact in North Texas. Super honored to be a part of it. Great privilege, all those things. But God started like bringing some of this stuff up again. And he was like, man, you know, the church is good. Like they're going to be okay. Like I'm actually calling you to go do some other things. And I started talking about that with my family. We started getting on the same page about it, talked to my staff team about it. We started praying about it. And the short version of this story is that as honoring as everybody could be, it was very evident that I couldn't continue to do both. It needed to be one or the other. And here we are again with loss. You know, like, you know, stepping out of 20 years of ministry, helping people rebuild their lives, helping people find hope, helping people discover their purpose, all of these things, stepping out of that. But then like the light of like stepping into this new chapter with God, like that he's inviting me into. 3 days after stepping off staff, I see this event called the Great American Speak Off. And I would have never even given 2 thoughts about it because I don't have the time because of my commitment to staff. Well, here I'm off staff and it comes across my feed 3 times. So 3 days later, 3 times in a day. And I'm like, all right, well, God's obviously trying to say something.
Yes,
like,
he is.
I don't know what it is, but he's saying something. So let me pay attention. And then my friend DMs me and he's like, hey, bro, have you seen this? And I'm like, yeah, 3 times already. And so that weekend, I went to the audition in Dallas, got a golden ticket, went to Miami, enter our relationship, which was great. Had a great time in Miami, and I'm there. And, you know, for those who don't know, 30,000 people registered, almost 3,000 auditioned, something like that. 165 got to go to Miami.
Yes.
And so this room full of amazing, magnificent, incredible world changers, speakers. I mean, you talk about former NFL, NHL, MLB, $50 million business owners. You're talking about mega church pastors and, you know, just incredible people, right? And I'm surrounded by all these people. And my first thought was, what am I doing here? What am I doing in this room? And then God was like, Jay, look around. Exactly. This is the room I'm putting you in. This is the room. This is who you are. This is the value you bring. This is the environment. This is the elevation I'm doing in your life. And like, I went from loss and anxiety and excitement into this new chapter to like this whole level of like, I literally laughed out loud. I'm upstairs in the room with a whole bunch of people and, you know, we're up there together. And I'm looking around the room and I just started laughing. I was like, God, you're funny. I would have never even thought about stepping into this. And here God takes a moment and suddenly changes everything in a moment, changes the whole thing.
Yeah, this is so good. Okay, because I want to talk to our audience about transitions in life. And sometimes we feel like, okay, and listen to Jason's story. He was good. You know, he thought, man, and you can look from the outside looking in like, oh, he's good right there. This is where he's going to stay. He's going to retire here. This sounds perfect. You know, we're done. Stick a fork in it. But God sees so much more.
Come on.
Okay. And it's another transition in life. Okay. And in life, we're going to have lots of losses, but there's also lots of transition. And in that transition, there's always a gain. There's always a win. There's always light and laughter at the end of it. Yeah. And so I am so I'm just honored to meet someone that had the courage, the humility, right? And the level of like just respect for God to obey. That level of obedience. Let's not even look over this. All right. To be in a really great place and then hear his voice and know, you know what? It's time to transition into something new. Listen, if you're listening to this and if you are a parent again, and your child is saying, Mom or Dad, I think God is calling me into something else. You may have a whole something in mind saying, oh, you're going to go to college. You're going to do this. You have a whole path scripted for your child. But then there's transition. I tell you, Jason is speaking to me right now. Hold
Come
on a
on.
minute. Like his story is speaking because sometimes as parents, we can put our children in a box and we can determine this is the kind of life that I want them to live. This is the direction I want them to go. And then look at Jason. I mean, he's doing something honorable, but God is saying it's time to transition in that. And so for some of our listeners, it's early in the year. And I'm telling you, God has spoken to you, and it's time for you to transition with humility. And you got to do it. All right. He's calling you just like he was calling Jason. And so if you're listening to this, this is not an accident. This is not a coincidence. You heard God the first time. You heard him correctly. Yes, you did.
Get
Okay.
'em.
It's time for you to transition. It's time for you to transition. Okay.
That's right.
I know there's some, there might be some fear, but listen, I want you to do it with humility and to trust that God has a perfect plan for your life. And if you think that God is going to have you leave something as wonderful and as great as what Jason had for less, come on now.
Yeah.
What kind of God we
Totally.
serve? You know, there's always more.
Yeah, that's a good word. There's always, absolutely. That's one of the things I love that about God. There is always more. God, listen, I was told a long time ago, it's better to be in a tornado with God than being on the beach without him.
Yes.
And if he's moving in any direction, just move. Wherever he's moving, move. Do that. That's where he's inviting you to. You know, I want to tell somebody out there who's struggling to transition right now, listen, you know, deep down inside, you're listening to this, something inside of you right now is resonating with this because you know there's a calling, there's a greatness. You sent on and got it out. And I know it's scary. Come on, when Jesus told Peter to get out the boat, he didn't tell Peter, listen, when the waves calm down and when it's not dark and crazy, and when the lightning stops, no, he said, come on, man, get out the boat. And it was scary, but he did it. And I want to invite you to trust God in this season that you're in, to have the courage and the faith to do it. Listen, God brings me to these places all the time where he says, Jay, do you actually still believe what you tell other people?
Let me drink some water. Let me drink some water. Hold on. I think he's talking to me.
Oh, man. Do you have the faith and the courage to still walk out the things that you tell other people and the things that you tell people you believe? Do you have the faith and courage? Come on. You do. Woo. Dig deep. This is your sign.
You can't run my show. Speak to me, y'all. See, this is how God works, okay? I think I'm interviewing him. No, he's come to tell me.
Let's go.
Let's do this. This is such an awesome episode. Oh my goodness. I know so many people are going to be blessed by hearing this testimony of just transition and continuous transition in life.
Yeah.
And so listen, we're going to get ready to wrap up. Do you have any last minute advice for our listeners?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a lot we could say, right? Parents, don't give up on your students, man. Don't give up. If my mom gave up, I probably would never have made it to that place where God got a hold of me finally. If you're a student or you're a, young adult, young professional, like whatever you're going through, God's doing something for you. He's doing something through you, and he's preparing something behind the scenes for you later that you can't see right now. And you have to trust him through the process, and he's going to lead you there. And for anybody out there, I didn't get a chance to talk about this earlier, but I want to tell you right now, like, man, one of the things I'm launching that we actually kicked off earlier this year was we invited some people into a journey we've kind of created out of all this stuff that we've talked about today. We created this thing called 4E mindset coaching, and really these principles that kind of just shaped my life and that God has used. And I know this isn't for everybody, but man, I know this is perfect for some people. Mm-hmm. And you can go to 4emindset.com and you can get connected. It's a free workshop that we're going to do. It's just 3 days, 1 hour a day. But I'm going to take the best of like what God has given me over 20 years of helping people change their life and discover their purpose and help you elevate your life and your business to a whole nother place. And so I just want to invite you to check that out. I think it'll be something that could really help you with your relationships, your marriage, your business, just your life in general. All these things is going to help take you to the next level. And for some of you right now who are kind of like struggling, I want to share this last story. I'll never forget. It was 3 o'clock in the morning in the dead of winter. And it was so cold that I could see every single breath as it left my body. And I couldn't sleep. I was freezing and I was curled up inside this cardboard box, half of a cardboard box. And my life was a mess. And I knew something needed to change. I didn't know what, but I knew I couldn't keep doing this. I had nowhere to go. I had no place to stay. And I got up out of that cardboard box and I just started walking with my numb feet and my cold body until I found a door that I recognized. And at 3 o'clock in the morning, I started banging on that door. And it hurt with every single bang on that door because of how cold it was. And I didn't have gloves. And I was banging on that door from 3 a.m. until 5 a.m. until somebody finally opened up that door and let me in. And I'm telling you right now, for some of you, you've been letting excuses hold you back. Your circumstances hold you back. Your situation hold you back. And right now, for some of you, it's time to get up out of that cardboard box of mediocrity and start moving one step at a time until you find that door. And I don't care how painful it is. I don't care how long you have to knock on that thing, how uncomfortable it is. Come on, you need to bang on that door until life opens up that door and shows you your next season. This is your sign for some of you. Don't give up. Don't give in. Get the courage, get the faith, get to your feet and start to move.
That's so good. Yes, y'all. Ooh, Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's 4emindset.com?
Yeah, 4emindset.com.
Y'all, find Jason. Come on, find Jason and befriend him. You're on Facebook and are you on IG?
Yep. Official Jason Queen is my handle everywhere. So you can find me everywhere with that.
Find him and friend him. Okay. This is what I'm saying. Find him and friend him because you're going to meet someone that's going to need his services. Okay. So it may not be you today. It may be a friend of yours tomorrow. So I need everyone to find Jason at the official Jason Queen. That's where you are on Facebook.
Come on. Yep.
Find him there and then get his services at 4emindset.com. Jason, thank you so much for coming on. Oh my goodness. This was a magnificent episode. Man, you filled my heart today. You got me. I'm like, look, I got to get my stuff together. Let me get on this.
Hey,
okay.
Let's go.
There's
always
so
more.
Much.
Come on.
There's always more. And this concludes this episode of Lost, Light, and Laughter.
Everybody show love one time. It's time to give praise. Everybody give praise one time. Yeah, it's time to show love. Everybody show love one time.